Emaciated former prisoner of the Buchenwald concentration camp drinks from a metal bowl shortly after the camp's liberation in April 1945. A French sailor and 2 U.S. Army soldiers gaze at the Eiffel Tower after the liberation of Paris. September 1944. A German soldier fires a backpack flamethrower across a field of tall grass in the Soviet Union, circa 1941 to 1942. Adolf Hitler and several Nazi officials survey the Great Gustav, the largest artillery cannon ever built at 155 feet long, 1,350 tons in weight, with 11-foot shells weighing 7 tons each. Date unspecified. American sailors on board a destroyer, circa 1940. Central Hiroshima lies in ruins in September 1945, the month after U.S. forces dropped an atomic bomb on the Japanese city. 2 prisoners of the Buchenwald concentration camp near Weimar, Germany stare out through its barbed wire fence. 1945. A lathe operator forges parts for transport planes at the Consolidated Aircraft Corporation plant in Fort Worth, Texas, in October 1942. A camouflaged American serviceman holds his pistol while making a call on a walkie-talkie, circa 1943. Thick smoke billows from stricken American warships, from left, USS West Virginia and USS Tennessee, along Battleship Row during the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, Hawaii on December 7, 1941. Shortly after the liberation of the Buchenwald concentration camp, a former prisoner holds a human bone from a large pile of other bones from the camp's crematory. Circa April 1945. Crowds gather on Paris Champs-Élysées as French tanks roll past in celebration of the liberation of France on August 26, 1944. U.S. Navy aviator Jesse Rhodes Waller tries out a machine gun he had just installed on a plane at the air base in Corpus Christi, Texas, in August 1942. This photo from the German Army publication Signal depicts the Nazi advance during the Battle of Moscow, circa January 1942. U.S. Marine Corps planes fly over Midway Atoll, the site of what is widely regarded as the most decisive American victory over the Japanese in the Pacific Theater, circa 1942 to 1943. Survivors of the Buchenwald concentration camp gather near its barracks on April 16, 1945, soon after the camp's liberation by U.S. forces. British Prime Minister Winston Churchill, front left, U.S. President Franklin Roosevelt, front center, and Soviet leader Joseph Stalin, front right, sit at the grounds of the Levadia Palace in Crimea, USSR during the Yalta Conference, held to discuss the reorganization of post-war Europe. February 1945. Locals clean up following a bombing raid on the United Kingdom. August 9, 1942. A U.S. landing craft filled with troops approaches the French coast for the D-Day invasion on June 6, 1944. U.S. Army soldiers are engaged in combat with German forces near the cathedral in Cologne. April 1945. An American soldier from 7th Armored Division mans the machine gun of his tank while on maneuvers. Circa 1943. U.S. soldiers with guard dogs walk patrol on a beach in Los Angeles, California, in order to spot possible Japanese attackers. 1943. A woman drills parts for a dive bomber at the Vultee Aircraft Corporation factory in Nashville, Tennessee, in February 1943. U.S. Air Force planes fly over Germany. Circa 1944 to 1945. At an evacuation hospital near the Italian front lines, actress Marlene Dietrich sits on a piano while troops and wounded soldiers gather around to listen to her sing. May 1944. The gallows at the Ohrdruf concentration camp. April 1945. One of the officers of the U.S. Navy aircraft carrier USS Bennington inscribes a bomb, for Gale, in memory of a departed shipmate, prior to strikes on Japanese targets. Circa May 1945. Canadian soldiers disembark at Juno Beach in Normandy, France during the D-Day invasion on June 6, 1944. A group of U.S. Army soldiers, rifles in hand, wears gas masks during a training exercise in California related to chemical attacks. 1943. Highly decorated U.S. Air Force pilot Francis Gabreski. Canadian soldiers hold a Nazi flag that they'd captured south of Hotmesnil, France on August 10, 1944. An American soldier trains at Fort Knox, Kentucky, in June 1942. Hungarian personnel, aligned with the Nazis, move into Bistrița, Romania on September 8, 1940. German forces march through Paris. Date unspecified. Both U.S. Navy servicemen and projectiles line the deck of the battleship USS New Mexico just prior to the invasion of Guam in July 1944. American tank crew servicemen post at Fort Knox, Kentucky, in June 1942. British Army Corporal M. Smith poses at the main headquarters of the 8th Army near Monte Sant'Angelo, Italy. Circa 1944. Aboard the USS Missouri in Tokyo Bay on September 2, 1945, American servicemen watch high-ranking Japanese and American officials sign the former's instrument of surrender, which finally brought the hostilities of World War II to an end.